Good morning, viewers and subscribers. Today we have Mr. Mapena in the house. We'll be asking him a few questions about ZEP. Mr. Comrade Mapena, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm Ngwabuthwa Nicholas Mapena, the Executive Director of the African Diaspora Forum. I'm also the Chairman of the Zimbabwe community in South Africa.
Okay, Comrade Mapena, today I'll be having a few questions about the ZEP, what is happening now and how they will renew it. My first question will be, what is the ZEP and what necessitated it?
ZEP is a short for Zimbabwe Exemption Permit. It was granted in 2010 under special circumstances. There was cholera in Harare. There was also inclusive government in Zimbabwe, and Zimbabwe was trying to rebuild its economy. Because of cholera and the fact that the inclusive government was committed in building an economy in Zimbabwe, but at the same time, we were having many Zimbabweans that were in South Africa undocumented, at the time not willing to go back to Zimbabwe because of the economic challenges and cholera that was there. South African government, as a good neighbor, then it decided to assist Zimbabwe by granting special permits to Zimbabweans up to a time when Zimbabwe sorted out its political and economic issues. You would also know that before then, there were many people that were using Aslam document, even though they were not political victims, but they were using it as a document that would allow them to work, conduct business, and start in South Africa. So all those people were then asked to surrender those documents and apply for the special permits, which was non-documentation project Zimbabwe ZEP in 2010. And also there was an international outcry from the United Nations. The Security Council was saying that it was easier for South Africa or anyone to come to South Africa and use their documents. You remember it was at the time during the President Bush administration when was waging what was called the war against terror. Because we had Zimbabweans that had come to South Africa, applied for South African identity documents. Some were using those South African passports to travel to Europe and North America. So those individuals had their documents or passports withdrawn from them from January 2010. So, and the people were asked to prove that indeed they were South Africans, but they couldn't because they were Zimbabweans, and the amnesty then said, you are being granted an amnesty for you not to be prosecuted, you are not going to be deported, but you are going to be given a 4-year permit to remain in South Africa to sort out yourself. So these are some of the reasons why we ended up with the special permits for Zimbabweans.
Okay, thank you for answering that question. My second question will be, can you briefly describe the life of a Zimbabwean in South Africa before the special permits were introduced?
Before the special permits were introduced, as I've already said, some, because the majority of them are people of low skill, they do not qualify to apply for other visas. So they had to apply for South African documents. Many people from Matebele land because it is easier to speak the South African language. Some remained undocumented and they were being deported, harassed by the police, exploited at the workplace, and others. Then from 2002 in May, when the South African government agreed to grant political asylum to Zimbabweans, because previously from 2000, during the chaotic land reform program in Zimbabwe, South Africa was saying it could not grant asylum documents on the basis that under the UN Refugees Act, Zimbabweans did not qualify because there was no war. So when political victims from 2002 were given political asylum, the majority of people then flocked the asylum offices to apply for this. And when people were going home for holidays, they will be caught with these asylum documents because it does not allow you to travel back to Zimbabwe.
Yes, understood. And then the other question is, the figures of beneficiaries have been going down by each successive new permits, with more than 120,000 of the initial beneficiaries now on the ZEP. Why is that so?
No, there were in 2010, 295,000 people submitted their applications for the Documentation Zimbabwe Project ZEP. 245,000 were issued. I remember we had several meetings with the Department of Home Affairs because about 45,000 people or so did not receive their permits even though they submitted. We discovered that some of these permits were sold to people who were not meant to, who were not deserving. So the number of course goes down because either people pass on or people relocate, people move to other visas, especially in 2014. The granting of these special permits enabled some Zimbabweans to upgrade their skills, to continue with their academic studies. When they qualified for other visas offered in the mainstream visas, they began to move to other visas. So this is also one of the reasons why the number keeps on going down. The minister says by 2017, when permits were issued, 178,000 were issued. But of course, it is now less than 178,000.
Okay, you have just answered the other question I was going to ask you. Then I will just add something on that question. What percent of Zimbabweans on the ZEP are employed in South Africa right now, and which jobs are they doing?
No, we don't have statistics, but what we are told by the Minister of Labour and Employment, Honorable Thulas Nxesi, is that 4% of migrants work in South Africa. We do not know. They also, government does not have figures of undocumented migrants, so we do not know how many people are undocumented. So the 178,000 Zimbabweans constitute less than a percentage of migrants that work in South Africa. This is why we have been saying that the argument that they are taking people's jobs and so forth, well, it's an argument which we understand, but it's not been supported by facts on the ground.
Okay, that's well understood. And how has the ZEP improved the lives of Zimbabwean immigrants?
People have been able to open bank accounts. Before these permits, you will ask someone to open a bank account for you in their name. Your money will be paid to their account. Immediately the money is there, they will withdraw without your consent. They will borrow from you. You say you don't have money, the person will say, but the money is in the account. So people have been abused. Secondly, people were forced to work long hours because you could not take your employer to CCMA or to the labor court. So the granting of these permits enabled workers, migrant workers, to negotiate for better wages and better working conditions. People now would open their bank accounts. They will acquire driver's licenses. They will deposit flats without going through another person. Some were able to buy property and register it in their names.
It makes sense because people have been suffering from those special needs or even to purchase something like purchasing a car or something. It's understood. And then my next question is how has the cancellation of ZEP affected the future of the Zimbabwean immigrants?
Firstly, is that people are receiving notices from their employers to say, look, provide us with the proof that you have applied to move to another visa so that we keep you in the company. And the people are being told that if they will not produce proof of application or proof of payment, they are going to lose their jobs. That on its own it's a challenge. Banks also want proof that one has applied to produce a permit by the end of the grace period, which is the 30th of June 2023. And of course, people are finding difficult to apply for study permits for their kids because if I'm on ZEP, my kids are on study visa under me, they cannot be granted, they cannot renew their study visa until I renew my own or I move to another visa, then they apply under me. So there's uncertainty with the school-going kids. And of course, now we've seen people being chased from health facilities in Cosmo, in Newville, and in other areas. So these are some of the challenges that people are facing.
And then the other question is, many ZEP holders are typically of applying for the mainstream South African permits due to lack of qualifications. What is your advice to them?
The reasons for, as I've said, for granting the special permits is that people could not qualify to apply for other mainstream visas. Had they qualified, there was no reason to introduce this visa regime or this special permit regime. Remember that this is not in the Immigration Act. The minister exercised her powers in 2010 to grant or to document the Zimbabweans, and also did that in 2014 with the people of Lesotho. So it is not covered under the Immigration Act, but the Immigration Act and the Citizenship Act provides the minister with the powers to document any person under special circumstances, and these were special circumstances. So when government then on the 25th of November 2021 said people should move to other visas, mainstream visas, it basically said you did not qualify in 2010, were to grant you special visa, you are not going to qualify now, so you have to go back. It was a diplomatic way of saying it. But of course we recognize that in the last 13 years, there are others that have upgraded their skills, as I've already said. They qualify to move to other visas, and they are indeed applying to move to other visas. There are others that are applying for relative visas, whether one's partner is South African, they do qualify to apply. And yes, the critical skills list was then reviewed in February 2022. Some people like your diesel mechanic were part of the critical skills. Now they are not. These are the people that are applying for waivers to say we do not qualify, but we've got this qualification, but it is not under critical skills. But what we are yet to see, which the minister was speaking to recently, is how will a petrol attendant, a domestic worker, a packer at a spa or Pick and Pay get granted a general working visa. We will have to see that, because the minister was saying people should apply for waivers. They have been misdirected or misinformed by lawyers because there is a court case which will come up in April. So yeah, that's the issue that all of us are looking forward to.
Okay, speaking about the minister, what do you make of the most recent comments by the Minister of Home Affairs, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, on ZEP applications?
What he has said has opened floodgates for people of low skill to apply for waivers. We have always understood that you apply for a waiver when you realize that there's a requirement that might hinder you from getting a permit or a visa that you think you qualify under, and you ask the government to waiver that requirement or to remove that requirement. That's our understanding of a waiver. But as we are saying, we do not know how a petrol attendant will end up getting a general working visa, because the argument, even which has been advanced by the Department of Labor and Employment through the policy on migration and labor, is that there are jobs that are being done by South Africans, and with the unemployment, these jobs should be closed off to migrants. The president, in his State of the Nation address, President Cyril Ramaphosa, spoke of people that will contribute to the economy of South Africa through bringing in, or by bringing in, scarce skills which are not directly available in the South African economy. But unless, of course, they are making a special arrangement for ZEP holders on the basis that they've been part of the South African economy, to an extent that then a domestic worker or who's a holder of ZEP who will qualify for a general working visa, but that will not mean a domestic worker who is not documented will qualify. So these are the things that we are looking forward to.
Okay, before we wrap up, I've got another 2 questions for you. What do you think will be the impact of the impending court cases on the ZEP cancellation?
Well, first, we do not know what the court is going to decide. So if everyone is waiting for the court case, mid-April, the African Diaspora Forum and the Zimbabwe community in South Africa, they are not part of the court case, but the people that we represent have a serious interest in what the court will say. So we are also looking forward to the outcome or the judgment. Then we will then act based on what the court will have decided.
My last question is not it's not a question. Any general comments from you?
Well, we encourage ZEP holders to apply for waivers based on what the minister said. People keep on asking us about the link. Where's the link to apply for a waiver? Send us a link. We always direct them to the website of the VFS because if you simply Google, it's not complicated. Simple approach Mr. Google and say, give me a website for VFS, they will give you. Just Google VFS website, it will come up, you open, the form will be there, and then it will direct you on what to do. Then you submit your application. But if, of course, you have difficulties, you are not computer competent like some of us, you can ask someone to assist you, whether you pay them 50 Rand, whether you pay them 100 Rand, depending on what you agree. But make sure that any application that is done is completed online. You then get given the bank account where you will deposit the money. You get an appointment. You physically submit your documents at VFS. There is no agent that should submit your documents. You submit in person at VFS. The person should only assist you to do the online application because either you are using an old phone like me, my Dorin, and you can't access the website using your phone, or you're having difficulties, then you can ask someone to assist you. Once everything is done, you go to VFS and submit.